it's the patriarchy, right? And like, we may have to cut this, or people who have not watched Barbie yet, stop
Oh,
listening.
good.
I have not seen Barbie yet.
Me
I
either.
want to see it, but I have not seen it
I
yet.
did see Oppenheimer, by the way.
Oh,
Loved it.
I
Okay, go
heard
ahead.
so good. I heard
So
it.
good. Yeah.
I can't wait
Love
to
it.
see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see both. Um, but I heard this interview, and it was, and they even said, if you haven't seen it, don't listen to this. We don't want to spoil anything. But I was like, I don't care. I want to watch. I'm going to watch it anyways. But I
Yeah.
was interested in hearing the
I'm
conversation.
sorry, it's not a cliffhanger. It's not like Sixth Sense. I'm pretty sure, right? Where
No,
if you
no,
know
no.
the secret, then the movie's not worth it. It's Barbie, for God's sakes.
I know exactly. But it was interesting because it kind of talked about the premise of the film, which I hadn't heard this much about. And I guess in Barbie's world, the women run everything. Like that's why everything's pink, and that's why like people are happy, and like things are actually run very, very, very well. And like Barbie doesn't need Ken, and the women are
Right.
like doing very well. I guess part of the synopsis of the film is Barbie and Ken come to America, or like come to our world.
Right.
And Ken is just like, oh my God, men run everything. Like all of a sudden he wants to take power. And when they go back to Barbie world, he basically kicks Barbie out and he takes over, and the women become totally dependent on men. And I guess one of the characters, I don't know which one, basically talks the Barbies out of doing this. They're like, take your power back. Why are you going to let these men basically like run your life? And then Barbies come back and like, I guess, take back over or whatever. But I just thought, wow, like that's kind of deep. Like that's a very interesting concept
Yep.
that comes to America, or comes to like art, and then is like, oh, well, I can have power and I want to reclaim that when I get back. Like I want to live the way these men live. I mean, I feel like it's
Fascinating.
probably a lot to dissect. It's way above my brain power and energy, but
You know,
I
that
don't,
is interesting. I did know that part of the premise was that she left her perfect little world and came to the real world.
yeah, the real world, right?
But I did not realize there was the caveat of men taking over. And by the way, Ken is white.
Hmm.
Now there was Black Barbie
There was Black Barbie.
and Black Ken. I wonder if they're in the movie.
I have no idea.
I don't either. Interesting. And I'm not opposed to the Barbie movie. You know, I'm all it's not that I refuse to see it. It's just that I I've told people if I'm going to sit in a dark room, you know, by myself watching a movie, I'd rather have the girls with me, right? It's more fun with cats. So, but I did go see Oppenheimer because I went to a movie premiere thing with a partner, someone that supports my company. So I did not know it was 3 hours long.
Oh, is it really?
Well, it's probably longer than 3 hours when you add the credits in. But I did not stay for the credits. And about 2.5 hours in, I did say, how much longer? But it wasn't because I was bored and I wanted it to end. It was because I thought, wow, there's still so much of the story left to tell. And I feel I've been here a while, right? Like I was like, maybe,
Long time to be sitting in a theater.
yeah. But when it was over, I didn't go. My first thought was, I need to see that again. That was my first thought. I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
I would see that again for sure. The guy that played Oppenheimer, don't know who he is. I'm sure he's famous. I just don't know who he is. He was amazing. He was great. And the story made me think, actually, that's a lie. The first thing I thought was, I need to go get a book, right? I need to actually get a true Oppenheimer book, because I'm sure there was a lot of dramatization possibly in this one.
Oh,
That,
Cillian Martin Murphy, I think is
what's his
he
name?
plays him. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Cillian Murphy. He
Oh,
was
I've
in
never heard
Peaky
of him.
Blinders. That's what I know him from is Peaky
Oh.
Blinders.
Oh, I never saw that, by the way. But he was great. He's great. Great in the
Mhm.
movie. I mean, you're like you feel what he's feeling. That was great. I mean, like that's part of what you want from it, but it did make me think I really need to buckle down on my actual history. And I wonder how much of this movie is true and how much of it is sort of true, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so my first thought was I really want to read up about it more specifically in historical facts, and then I thought I need to see it again. I would absolutely see that movie again. So it is worth doing, I felt.
Yeah. It keeps, I mean, it's getting like rave reviews.
Yeah. One thing though is there's so many people in it, right?
That's what I heard. That was the
So many
only,
characters.
yeah, and it wasn't a criticism. It was more of just like it's really hard to track in some ways because there's so many people and there's so many storylines and
Yep.
like there's a lot happening. And that's
Yep.
what I heard. The person was like, I feel like I have to watch it again.
Yeah.
Like,
But you don't, it's not like, but now I'm going to tell you something if this helps at all. I went to see Avatar, the original Avatar, with a friend of mine when it first came out. And I, again, didn't know it was 3 hours long. Right. And I was like, shit, I'm not going to sit here for 3 hours to see a movie. I'm only going to because she wanted to see it. That was my thought. And at the end of the movie, I turned to her and I said, it's over? Right? Like it was so, I was so enthralled and emotionally connected and I was into it. And then it ended and I'm like, it's over. So maybe we need 3 hours in order to get connected. Who knows? But it's too long for a movie, but it was totally worth it and I would do it again.
all right, good to know. Maybe I'll go watch it this week.
Yeah. No, and Barbie, I'll wait till it comes out on streaming since we pay for that anyway. So
True.
although I do like Brian Gosling, and if he is taking his shirt off, it'd be worth the cash for me.
I don't know why this is such a like weird thing. Like I do like Ryan Gosling, but I liked him more when I found out he was with Eva Longoria, or not Eva Longoria. What's her name? Eva Mendes. I just love their little relationship. Like they've been together for a really long time. I don't
Awesome.
even know if they're married or not. They have two kids, but they're really quiet.
Yeah,
They don't, I don't know why. I just love that. Like they just live their life.
which I do too. And I do not want to disrupt that, but I like to look at him shirtless, right? I mean, that's funny because when my friends were over yesterday, I always put movies on to watch in the background, and the boys typically gravitate to the living room to watch the movies, and I like Marvel. So we have Disney Plus, and you can watch them in timeline order. And the one that was on, Shang-Chi, which apparently none of them had seen because nobody wanted to see that movie. And turns out it's great, and I love that one.
Which one?
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi. I don't even know
Yeah,
what that.
it's what nobody knows about, right? It's Asian main characters.
Who?
Asian.
Oh,
Am I allowed
okay.
to say that word?
Yeah, yeah, no, of course.
Okay. And so yeah, it's predominantly an Asian cast. Just like, Black Panther, predominantly black cast. So I
Yeah,
like that. So it's Shang-Chi, so it's Asian themed, and everybody in it is Asian, like it should be.
yeah.
Right? So, but it wasn't a very popular movie apparently, and I don't know that it got huge critical acclaim from the Marvel crowd, but I love it.
Oh, it's a Marvel film?
Yeah, he's a superhero.
Mm.
And he's hot. And he's shirtless for 5 seconds in the movie. But after that, I said, hey, have you guys seen Love and Thunder? And they hadn't. And Love and Thunder is the last Thor movie, right? And I don't think it did that great at the box office overall compared to, but I love it. It's a good one. I love it because it's women kicking ass. And anytime women kick ass in a movie, I'm in, right? So
Probably why it didn't do as well.
yeah, easily, right? So, I mean, Thor is in it, but it's Thor and then two women that are fighting with him, and the women are kicking ass, right? So, and I love that. And but there is one scene in this movie where Thor is naked. Now, I forgot the guy's real name. Please forgive me. Whatever.
Chris, Chris something,
Yes,
right? I'm gonna have to look it up.
Mulligan? No, Mi-
No, Chris Hemsworth.
not Mulligan. Okay, Chris Hemsworth. Yeah, hot motherfucker, right? That man's hot. And then you take his clothes off. Now the downside is somebody's like, oh, it's digitally altered. I'm like, don't burst my bubble, right? Just shit. Um, but yeah, so for 5 seconds, nah, not even. For 2 seconds, he's completely naked and you see his ass. Yes, please. I'm like, I'm okay with the fact that I like the male form. I'm okay with that. What's wrong
So
with
what's
that?
so funny is that guy who I mentioned, the crazy guy that I went out with for a while, who I may or may not see while I'm in Philly next weekend. I used to call him Thor because he looks like,
Oh, honey.
I have one girlfriend who's like, you better go see him. Like, even if it's just like, you don't have to rekindle anything, but just
Public place. Public place. That's all I'm saying. And not your hotel public
no,
place.
no, no, no. But oh
Probably
my,
better off not knowing.
like, yeah, like he was like 6'7" and just like ripped.
Hmm. I like ripped. It's not I'm like, it's not, if I'm looking for a significant other, that I, that will immediately fall to the bottom of the list. There are
Oh,
definitely
100%.
things that are far more important to me
100%.
in a partner, right? But if you're going to slap a man up on my TV screen, then fucking slap a hot man up on my TV.
You know what's so frustrating, at least in my experience. I cannot speak for others, but whenever I have found men who didn't fit all these like superficial boxes, let's say, right? Like they didn't fit the like hot 6'7", beautiful, but they were smart and funny and ambitious and driven and had all these other things, and like they're still shit. Like it just doesn't seem to matter. Like they're still shit.
You mean like they're assholes, not worth the
Yeah.
time? Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
They
Really?
still, yes. And again, that has been my experience. I am not speaking on behalf of all men. I'm not speaking on behalf of other women who have, but it's like there have been a few times where I've dated people that I was like, they're not necessarily like, I'm not over the moon attracted to them, but they have all these other qualities that I would rather be with in terms of like a long-term partner, and they're still dicks.
I mean, okay, so they're missing one quality that you are looking for. And
At
that's
least one.
not
And
being a dick.
yeah, not being an asshole. Or I mean, even though like this guy, Thor, I'll call him Thor, um, he was lovely, actually, like one of the nicest people I've ever dated. That's why when he acted a little crazy, I was like, who the fuck is that? Like, that was definitely not his normal, what I had experienced of him.
Hmm.
We just didn't have anything to talk about, but he was very sweet and very nice, but he didn't like follow politics at all, like at all. Wasn't like really aware of what was happening in the world.
Right.
So but sweet as could be, like, and nice, and was still liberal and still progressive, and didn't, he wasn't like a Trumper or anything. But I do think sometimes that's where we can stereotype people as well, because I'll be the first to admit, if I see a guy that's like super hot, tall, has all the things, I'm like, he's going to be a dick. Like I just assume that, and this guy actually wasn't at all. But these
Right.
other people who did not check those boxes on the like completely superficial, just like still, I I've literally put my hands up. I'm not going to make assumptions anymore.
I
I
think
used
that
to
is
think that
actually the best choice is, and I say this to myself all the time, let's not assume.
yeah.
But now let's talk about box checking for 1 second, and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
But I, 150 years ago, prior to meeting my husband and getting married, my ex-husband and getting married, when I was in church, the youth pastor's wife, whom I love, said, make a list, right? Make a list of what you want. Because I think at the time, even though I was freaking young, right? Because I got married at 24. So this was prior to 24. I also had never had a boyfriend prior to that, right? And so she's like, make a list of everything you want, everything. Right. And so I did. And that included long brown hair, tall, skinny, and then, other qualities like internal qualities, etc. Made this list and then met my ex-husband.
And he
And
checked the boxes.
oh yeah, he checked a lot of boxes. There was one box he didn't check, and it was stupid. It was like a superficial box because he did have long brown hair, but it was, oh, I think he had blue eyes instead of brown or something like that, right? Like when you're 20, this is the shit you come up with, right?
Mhm.
But he did check all the boxes, but come to find out, when you're 20 years old and you make a list, you don't really know what you want. Like,
Yeah.
how would I know that, compassion would be important at 20? And yet
I'm
turns
with
out
you.
it's like probably number one on my list at this point. Just out of curiosity, one, would you physically write a list?
I
Two,
have.
okay, have you updated that list?
I mean, not in like a couple weeks.
Oh, then yes, you have updated that list, because my list was from when I was 20 and I am now 57. So it's time to maybe update the list, right?
Update
Because
the list.
yeah,
You know what, I hadn't really done a list, and then I was talking to my therapist, and we were talking about this last breakup, and I was talking about the things I knew I didn't want anymore, and that's when she kind of flipped the script and said, well, why don't you write down the things that you want? Like, don't concentrate on the don'ts, like concentrate on the positive things and the types of qualities that you want, and um start.
and I normally would agree with that 100%. And I think that was Mother Teresa's philosophy. She's like, don't be anti-war, be pro-peace. And
Yeah.
I'm like, get it, totally understand it. But interesting enough, in this particular scenario, I thought it's easier for me to say what I don't want, because there's a billion things that I could live with that may not make it onto the list.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I know I don't want someone that wants to change me. Right. But then on the flip side, maybe I wouldn't care as much somebody that didn't like, spaghetti, even though I'm Italian and we're going to have pasta. Right. It's not that big of a deal.
And maybe it's one of those in the reframe of like, and you've said this before, I want someone who likes me.
Yeah. That's what I want.
Right. I want someone who likes me. It's not someone who wants to change me. It's someone who likes me for who I am,
Yeah.
and all my flaws and all of my shit, that
Yep.
they're willing to deal with
And the
it.
and the fact that I'm not skinny, right? And I I'm probably never going to be skinny. I do want to lose weight because I don't want to have a heart attack. So I am focused on my health.
Yeah.
And as long as we can both live with that, great. But again, that goes back to wanting to change me, because I don't want to change anybody. I really don't. It's too much work. It's not permanent. It's not right.
But even then, that's so tricky because I agree. Fundamentally, you can't change people, right?
Mm-mm.
The one thing when I try to look back on the relationship I just got out of or ended, that ended, is that particular individual had become mean, in my opinion, had become mean. Like, and I had really genuinely started to feel like they didn't really like me
Right.
anymore. And, but I kept thinking, like, what I was debating internally, and maybe I should, and hindsight's always 2020, I should have just asked or had the conversation. I made the assumption of this person is going through a really stressful time right now. This is gonna change when, so not that I knew I could not stay in that relationship if that person remained acting the way that they were. Like that was
Mhm.
just not gonna work for me. But I did want to give grace or give some sort of like, I understand people are up and down, and sometimes people aren't always at their, I know I'm not all the time. Like I'll go through periods where I'm not my normal self and I like snap out of it, or I just need to get through that period.
Yeah.
Um, so it's not, I feel like that's a really interesting concept to think through because it's not wanting people to change, yet people are always changing.
Well, they're always, except that's consistent. Like, if you know what I mean? Like, you have these bad moments.
Yeah.
That's not changing. That's consistent with who you are. I mean, like, wanting to change someone is, like,
Wanting to have empathy for people.
yeah,
Like you,
like, or yeah, or like even the way you maybe take a shower, right? Because I've had people try and change really crazy things about me. Really, really, really crazy. Like, I had a boss who didn't want me to talk to people, right? Don't, and I'm like, well, it's never going to change. Actually, my first boyfriend, I remember my very first boyfriend, my first love, um, he used to hate that I would be at a market and I would talk to the person standing next to me. He used to hate it. And I realized I'm never going to change. And if you hate that about me, I respect that.
and we
Okay.
shouldn't be there. Yeah.
I'm not your girl.
Yeah.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
not going to work out.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Like, if I'm an outgoing person, and I think a lot of that is control, and men like to control. And so do women. There's women who like to control too.
Oh yeah. It's
Let me
human
rephrase that.
nature.
Yeah.
Like, and that's where it's so tricky. Like, I think the last guy that I dated did not like that I drank as much as I did sometimes. And it wasn't always, but I definitely would, go like party. Like there's no question. Partying is definitely a part of my life. But now I'm not. And it has nothing to do with him, but it's like people can't, that's why I'm like, I have issues sometimes with cutting someone off or not being with someone for something that could change eventually. If it's not,
Hmm.
it's dependent on how you feel about it, right? Like for some people, there are very clear boundaries or they have very specific things, and that's fine. Like, I don't
Hmm.
think there's anything wrong with that. And I think that that's good to have those non-negotiables that like just are not going to work for you. um I just think
Well,
the tricky part with those is like, yeah, so it's like if you fundamentally really care about someone and like them, and they are going to have flaws, and those are flaws they're flaws in your mind, but they are things that, who knows, that they may not be around much longer. Like, why would you end something or not want to be with someone because of that?
you know why? And so maybe this is part of the reason why I struggle, because there's almost 8 billion people in the world. There are other options.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of how I look at it. I'm like, you know, I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm just saying I'm not the right girl for you, right? Like and that's that. Like, for instance, I joke about my deal breakers being the Ravens and Subaru drivers, right? I truly am joking. Sort of. The Ravens, I don't know, that's pushing the limits. I might be able to handle a Subaru, but the Ravens, I don't know. But I do say it tongue in cheek, but I will tell you this. An alcoholic or a pot smoker, I can't do. I just can't do it. You could be the most greatest, wonderful human being, and I want nothing but great things for you, and we could probably be friends, but I am not going to date you. I've dated an alcoholic. That was not good for me. First of all, it's more than just the alcohol, right? So there's the fact that I don't sit still for very long, right? And so if the next day you got to sleep it off and I got to do all the work, we got an issue, right? And pot for me is a struggle for no good reason, right? I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying this is what it is. And a
For
lot
you.
of it is laziness. I do struggle with laziness. I can't handle people just laying around doing nothing. There's always something to be done, right? And that's just me.
Yeah.
And that's not saying they're a bad person for doing those things. I'm saying I'm not the right girl for you. And the good news is there's probably 10,000 other women out there that are right for you. So you don't really need me. That's how I look at it.
100%.
And I
Totally.
feel that's true for there's 10,000 other men out there that do meet my minimum requirements. You know what I mean? That I don't have to change,
Yeah.
right? Because if you're a pot smoker and that's what you like to do, I'm wholeheartedly supportive of that. You
Yeah.
go right ahead. I don't want to change you. Absolutely do not. I'm not going to ask you to stop smoking pot. I'm just telling you, I'm not going to date you.
So, and that's what I mean though. Like, say if you met someone and they were super cool and they were awesome and they smoked pot, but it's like, you don't know that a year from then, nothing related to you not telling them not to do it, that they're
Right,
like, I just don't want to smoke anymore.
right. And if I'm not cutting them off, like if I'm like, you're a horrible person, I never want to see you again, I would not blame them for never talking to me. But I don't feel that I would say that. What I would say is, hey, let's play this by ear because I'm not good with drugs. It's something I personally am not good with. And I don't want to change. I don't want to change you. I want you to decide on your own. I'm not going to do pot anymore, and here's why. And then if we're still in a right place, right time, great. But
No.
that's why I'm not going to cut them off and be like, I'm never speaking to you. I have friends that I love and adore that smoke pot multiple times a day. I love them. They are my friends. I would do anything for them. I'm not cutting them off. I'm just never going to marry them. Of course, they're female. That's another issue, but you know what I mean?
Fair, yeah. No,
Yeah.
that makes sense. All
So
right, Nancy. Well, happy almost birthday.
yeah, I'm like I said the other day I'm done celebrating, and my friend's like, "Why would you be done celebrating? You're standing for another year. Like once you get to this age, you're like, oh yeah, I should celebrate this. I'm still alive, so I'm doing it."